You know him. Oh, her. Them. Those people. It's become the common way we address one another these days. We depersonalize, we categorize, we segregate, we label, we mark, we judge. Oh, them. And when we do that, we create a deep chasm between us and them. And I think to a greater degree, that's intentional. We don't want to be seen as him or her or them or those kind. I find that language fairly common in social media, in the news. I find it highly prevalent in political ads these days, and even in the language of the church. That chasm, we dig even deeper and wider these days. And it comes at a great cost, both socially and personally. Jesus tells a very interesting story in Luke's gospel. It's a story about a rich man who dresses in fine clothes and eats incredible meals at his table each night. And there is out at his gate a poor man named Lazarus, who satisfies himself from the scraps from the garbage dump, and the dogs lick his sore. Lazarus dies, and he's carried off to be with Abraham. The rich man also dies and ends up in Hades. And there he is in torment. And he looks up one day and he sees Lazarus with Abraham, and he calls out, "Father Abraham, send Lazarus down here, that he may dip his finger in cool water and quench my lips in the midst of these flames, for I'm in torment." You can almost hear Abraham chuckle. "Well, sir, you had a good life. Lazarus, his life sucked. But now, Lazarus is with me and you are in torment. And besides all that, there is now fixed a deep chasm between him and you, and he cannot come down and you cannot come up." Like so many of the stories in the Gospels, the kingdom is presented as a place where fortunes are reversed. The mighty are brought low. The poor are raised up. There is, in effect, a great leveling out, a removal of the distinctions, a filling in of the chasm. It is a new world, not dictated by us, but by God's grace. There's an interesting piece in that story in that the rich man has no name. He's one of them. But Lazarus is named. This bothered the early church so much that they gave the rich man a name eventually. They called him Dives. But the irony is that in the story, he's one of them. Just like he's categorized the poor and kept them outside his door. The issue is not that he was rich, but that he failed to keep the law. the law of hospitality, the law of care of the neighbor, to love the Lord your God and your neighbor as yourself. Well, he certainly doesn't treat Lazarus like himself. He digs his own chasm day by day. And the irony in the story, too, is that that chasm hasn't gotten any smaller, even though he's in torment, because he's still trying to order Lazarus around as though he was some kind of a thing to be manipulated. Oh, come down, send him down here. Yeah. We don't get it. We keep digging and digging and digging. That chasm gets wider and wider. Abraham's right. Even if they sent somebody back from the dead, we probably still would keep up our behavior. It is good that we have a gracious God who doesn't treat us like we treat each other, but instead calls us by name. From the waters of our baptism, he names us, marks us, and intimately calls us his own. We are marked for a new way of life and invited into that new way of life and how we treat one another. Do we continue to dig the chasm like the rich man? Or do we see in the life and death and resurrection of Christ a new day, a new way of behaving? Do we who have received grace upon grace extend that grace to others? Or do we keep digging? We're on the way to the kingdom. We've got our shovels in hand. The question before us, do we keep digging? Or do we start filling? Do we stay in torment? Or do we experience the riches of the kingdom, where all will be welcome?